YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back, and I'm very excited about today's video. Came across something very interesting. It's a big board for the 2023 NFL Draft, top 25 players, but not just any big board. It's from National Football Scouting. That is the committee that puts together the NFL Combine, the committee that chooses the players that will be in the Combine. A lot of the, every year they kind of probably discuss what teams and which players are on their radar. So pretty important stuff, pretty big stuff here. And they always do these rankings, but for some reason, not all players are eligible to be included in these rankings, but this year they are. So this is very interesting, very unique, surprising. Some rankings are surprising here in this top 25. We're going to break it down, maybe give us an idea on which players we need to be higher on, and maybe we can adjust our way to early mock draft. So very excited about this one to break it down. At the end, we'll talk about players that I'm surprised didn't make their cut, but we still got a whole college football season and NFL season to get to, and we have full coverage for all of that. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on, join us for that. Follow us on Twitter, a lot going on there. A lot of news, updates, and more. We were discussing the TYREE McLaurin extension, which happened a little bit earlier, so you could check that out. But the number one player on the board is Jalen Carter. And again, it says in the top left, it is not my big board. It's the National Football Scouting Prospect Rankings that is the same as the Combine Committee. So I find it very interesting. They have a unique grading scale. But Jalen Carter, number one overall player, and that's really not that surprising. I think most people maybe have Will Anderson, the edge rusher from Alabama, or maybe one of those quarterbacks. You take a look at C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young. There's a couple other solid quarterbacks as well, but I think most people's board has one of those players I just mentioned, including Jalen Carter at number one. So they got Jalen Carter at one, and you really could see why. I mean, Georgia keeps pumping out these defensive linemen. We saw them come out last year, and Carter, 6'3", 310. That's a massive human being, but he plays like he's lighter than 310. You see the length, the athleticism, the ability to move around different spots in the D line. It's just a rare type of player. We saw Trayvon Walker with his upside, rare type player, go one. Carter a little bit different, going to play more interior. Walker can play interior, though, but at the same time. But, Carter they have at one for now at this way too early stage. Number two is going to be Will Anderson. It's not really a surprise. I think most people, if you polled most people that make big boards, they probably have Will Anderson at one or two. Most people probably have a quarterback, if not Will Anderson, at one, or Jalen Carter. Will Anderson, the edge rusher from Alabama, very well could be the first pick in the draft. The combination of physicality, speed, the pass rush moves, the traits, 6'4", 243. It does seem a little light. It doesn't play like that, though. But again, the pass rushers are kind of gearing towards maybe being a little bit lighter these days, just going for athleticism. But that fits a 3-4 outside linebacker role, and I'm excited to see if he's in that Heisman running this year because he's that talented. So we know he'll be a top tier pick. So far, no surprises, but this is kind of where we get to somewhat of a surprise. Number three player on the National Football Scouting Committee's board right now is a guy that no one's really talking about. It's weird seeing a defensive player from Texas Tech up here. Very weird because they've had some rough goes on the defensive side of things there. But Tyree Wilson, the pass rusher from Texas Tech, and this is one of those where they have some surprising rankings where I'm like kind of agreeing with, or I'm like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. And then there's some surprising rankings where I'm like, I don't really agree with it. This is one where it's like, oh, maybe we're kind of getting our eyes opened here a little bit because Wilson, productive player, and he definitely has the traits you look for. He's got that size, 6'6", 275, can fit that 4-3 defensive end role. It feels like he's athletic enough to play any edge role, really, but the length and the production is all there. It is, weird seeing a guy from Texas Tech this good, and when you see these mocks and these boards, you don't really see Tyree Wilson at all. But that combine group there, they are high on Tyree Wilson. I think the NFL maybe has to be high on him because of the traits, and it's not like he doesn't have that production either. So that's a guy I think we all need to take keep an eye on here here's a guy, I sound like Collinsworth. So very interesting. A top three player on what's supposed to be a very, very good draft, especially with defensive lineman looking at edge, interior at the top, considered elite. We got him at 3, so that's very interesting there. And then coming in at number 4 is going to be Bryce Young, quarterback from Alabama. This really isn't that surprising. What is surprising, and you'll see, we'll get to it, is how the quarterbacks are kind of laid out. Pretty surprising on where they place amongst the QBs and amongst his board in general. But Bryce Young comes in at number 4 overall, quarterback from Alabama, coming off a insane season. Very talented. Has that arm, has the mobility, the escapability, the big play potential. He is 6 feet tall, so I do think some teams kind of worry about that. I think that's why a lot of those quarterbacks this class dropped, also because they weren't top-tier guys like Bryce Young, so it's not like he's the same thing's going to happen, anything like that. But teams do worry about that he is 6 foot. So I'm actually surprised on how the quarterbacks are ranked here in the committee's rankings, because it seems like they do value traits like size quite a bit throughout these, but not so much for the quarterback here. But they're just very high on Bryce Young, who, well, not higher than anyone else really, but you'll see what I'm talking about, the way the quarterbacks are laid out. So he's at number 4. Number 5 is BRYAN from Clemson, who, he's been on everyone. He's been on my radar, but everyone's radar, even coming out of high school. I mean, his high school tape was comical, just a bully. And I like his ability to play, because he came in, it's like, is he going to be a 4-3 end, play a little bit there, but we'll move him inside. It feels like he can play all over the place. Probably an interior player, probably can play 3-4 end, maybe 3 technique, but a strong, physical defensive lineman that's effective in getting pressure on the quarterback and stopping the run. He comes in number 5. There's a lot to like about him. People probably kind of going off of what he can become, kind of a bully of a dude in there in the trenches, which is impressive. 6'5", 300, good size. Kind of moves like he's a little bit lighter than that, perhaps. So he comes in number 5 there. Not super surprising, really. You would like for him to be a little bit more productive maybe going forward. I think he will. Number 6 is going to be a tight end, but not your ordinary tight end. And Michael Mayer, the tight end from Notre Dame, number 6 overall on the board, 6'4", 251. He plays a lot bigger than that. Very sturdy. The footwork is ridiculous. Obviously, the route running ability, contested catch ability. This is one of the better prospects we've seen in some time. And you even see Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame, who just got drafted last year, this past draft. I think he tweeted something that all the teams he interviewed in the pre-draft process were just asking about Michael Mayer, which is kind of funny because Mayer wasn't even in that draft class. He's in the next one. So teams already hyped on him, so I'm not surprised to see this committee very high on him. So we'll see what he can do this year. Could be the best tight end in the country, and the first one should be the first one picked come draft time there. So he's number 6. Number 7, maybe a little bit of a surprise too. We had that surprise with TYREE Wilson, the edge rusher from Texas Tech, another Big 12 pass rusher. Will McDonald from Iowa State, 6'4", 245, so he's a little leaner. Obviously, maybe wish you could perfect world could put a little more size on, but could fit that 3-4 outside linebacker edge rusher role. But he's been very productive from Iowa State. So production and having some length here, some athleticism, probably gets him on this list. But surprised. Maybe not surprised to see him in the top 25. Maybe it's surprising to some people because when you see the boards, the mocks, you don't really see McDonald, much like TYREE Wilson. But surprised that he's up in the top 10. So it kind of puts these guys kind of in our minds. Watch out for these guys, and we got to adjust our mocks a little bit. So Will McDonald from Iowa State, number 7. 8's going to be KELEE RINGO, the Georgia corner. Good size corner, 6'2", 205. Very talented. Not really a surprise on this one. I guess maybe debatable on who will be the top corner taken. But RINGO, could be that Ahmad Gardner of this draft class. Ahmad Gardner from his last draft class. KELEE RINGO could be that guy this year. So another Georgia defender, corner, comes in at number 8. Number 9, the Fighting Irish are having a good day when it comes to this big board here, because we just talked about Michael Mayer. Now we're going to talk about the Fighting Irish pass rusher Isaiah Foskey, who had a monster season last year. Big-time impact plays, kind of showed up in the right time, had very good production getting after the quarterback. Good size, 6'5", 260. Feel like he could stand up, play hand in the dirt. So, he had a monster season last year. I was a little surprised he came back because I think he could have been maybe a late first-round pick, maybe early second. It was a pretty loaded pass rush group, but that's where he was sitting, and he wanted to kind of come back. And solidify himself maybe in the first round there, and the scouting committee here thinks highly of him, so they got him in the top 10 there. So Notre Dame already with 2 guys. Not really surprised to see Georgia with multiple guys, Alabama with multiple guys, but that's not really surprised to see Notre Dame here because they do have some top tier guys for this draft. Number 10 And yes, this is my guy. This is JAHMYR GIBBS, former Georgia Tech running back, now transferring to Alabama. If you've been following us, I've been super high on GIBBS even since he was at Georgia Tech. And people kind of been telling me I've been too high on him. No one else really talking about him a whole lot. But the committee's going to put him at number 10, number 1. Not only number 1 running back, top 10 on their way too early board. And it has it has a grading scale that comes up. That's how they come up with this. But I've been very high in GIBBS. I saw him at Georgia Tech a couple years ago, and this guy looks like a future first-round running back. It's just weird because he's at Georgia Tech, and then he plays very, very well last year. So even his returning ability, his pass-catching ability, but the running ability mainly. And then all of a sudden, this offseason, he transfers to Alabama. So Alabama usually kind of grows their own. They get that top-tier recruit, and he's a stud, and they develop him. And he's already a stud before they develop him. And they go out and get a transfer, and that really tells me something that I think it tells me something that I was right about GIBBS. I knew that right when Alabama got him because, for them to go out and get that guy, they think very, very highly of him. It kind of gives me Alvin Kamara vibes, that was my guy of that draft class, who I was very, very high on, Kamara out of Tennessee. So GIBBS, I'm excited to see him high in this ranking system here. So I'm pumped about him to watch him in that Alabama offense, behind that offensive line this year. So definitely a stud, a do-it-all type running back, a running back worth taking in the first round here. And even if he's kind of quiet this year, where Bama, I don't think he will be. I think he'll be very productive. But even if they split, they use some other running backs that they've kind of grown, and they pass the ball a ton, I'm really not going to budge on GIBBS, even if he's not super productive. I'm very confident about him being an NFL running back, an all-around back. Number 11, this was a shocking one to me. This is one I'm going to disagree with on Brett Johnson, defensive tackle from California, mainly an interior guy. He's not going to get much production getting after the quarterback. Maybe some pressure going to stop the run here. I guess I got to watch a bit more of him, but I think that's all of us. Why? Because he didn't play last year, so due to an injury. So 6'5", 300, they see some upside, a big body guy on the inside that can stop the run. Just not a guy really on anyone's radar right now. I guess it does play a part that he didn't play last year, so I guess we can't knock him fully for that. So it's a guy we're going to have to watch this year. I was very surprised to see him at number 11. There was some surprises before this, GIBBS and some of those pass rushers. But it's like surprising at first, and you start thinking about like, oh, okay. But this one was a little more surprising there. And there's more surprises, don't worry. But a guy to watch apparently here. Number 12, Colby Wooden, maybe a little surprising too, maybe a little bit. And these are guys that viewed as top 50 players, some of these guys, so it's not like crazy. They're way too high in these guys. But the Auburn pass rusher, and they got 2 pass rushers to look out for this year. And one is kind of the traits guy, looking for him to be a little bit more productive, and one's kind of been a little bit more productive. But the traits guy is Wooden. He's definitely got the better traits of the group of pass rushers from Auburn, 6'5", 278. So you see the size, the length. You like the idea of what he can become. So he comes in at 12. And speaking of the other Auburn pass rusher, they get back-to-back spots here. So I was a little surprised to see that. That they're maybe this high, but they are very talented, high upside guys. Derek Hall, very athletic, lengthy as well. Maybe not as, the size isn't as eye-popping as the other, but it's a pretty good look for Auburn. I'm excited to watch their pass rush group here this upcoming season. So that defense could be nasty because of that. And they move. It's weird. Everyone's playing musical quarterbacks. They move on from Bo Nix. So it's going to be crazy to see how these SEC, not just the SEC teams, but all these teams perform, and they get Calzada from Texas A&M too. So, but I'm excited now. I'm even more excited to watch that pass rush duo. They get back-to-back spots here, 12 and 13. So Hall's been a little bit more productive. At least last year he was a little bit more productive of the two. So we'll see. Very interesting that two Auburn pass rushers in a row got the spots. 14 going to be Will Levis, the Kentucky quarterback, 6'3", 232. And I suppose it's not really surprising on where Levis is ranked, 14. All right. That kind of makes sense. I mean, some people maybe be a little higher. But I think it's surprising that he's quarterback 2. And then the big surprising thing is who they have at quarterback 3, why they have him that. I can't really say that low because quarterback 3 in this, what is expected to be a pretty good class, technically isn't low. But Levis, there's a lot to like about him. He's got Gets a little out of control with the ball sometimes, but he has those flashy big-time plays. You like the size on him, the build. He can run. Obviously, he has that strong arm. He kind of has that eye-popping play sometimes. So he's quarterback 2, according to this big board, and he comes in at 14. And maybe one of the biggest surprises of this group board is CJ Stroud all the way down at 15. Not only all the way down at 15, but quarterback 3. Right now, he's my quarterback 1. I know Bryce Young had the better year last year, but I'm looking at what they can become and how they are as NFL quarterbacks, what they can become as NFL quarterbacks, traits, all of that. I like CJ Stroud. I like his progression last year, what he got to. Super smooth. And it's a little surprising, too, not only because he's so low, but because it was just, I guess it depends on, we don't really know for sure how much the league plays a part of this, but at the Ohio State Pro Day, Stroud was actually the one throwing the ball, and there was just rave reports on CJ Stroud from scouts and coaches. So I figured he'd be a lot higher. He's my quarterback 1, kind of projecting the draft class. So again, this is not my rankings. If you're just skimming through here looking for CJ Stroud, not my rankings. He'd be in the debate for number 1. He is number 1 overall quarterback for me right now. We got to see the whole season, but he'd be in the debate for the number 1 overall player too for me. So it's very surprising. Most of the surprises so far have been kind of not the biggest name guys higher than where other people would put him, but now this is a surprise just because he's a big name guy. He's very, very good, and they're too low on him. So shocker that he's QB3 and down at 15. 16 can be Joey Porter Jr. That's Joey Porter's son, but he's playing cornerback for Penn State. Very, very talented corner. Had a very solid season last year, 6'2", 192. You like the length on him. Playmaker type guy. So excited to watch him. And, a lot of these guys, old-timers, not really old-timer, but sons are making it to the league. I feel like a lot lately. So, he's in that contention for one of the top. I don't think he'll be the top guy, but up there for some of the top corners in the class. 17, Nolan Smith, yet another Georgia Bulldog defender. The pass rusher, 6'3", 235. You want to put him to put on a little more size. I think he'll probably do that. Maybe he weighs more than that by now anyways. This is where he was listed last year roster. So maybe he's already done that. But very athletic, very long pass rusher. Got to put on a little bit more size. And again, especially with the 3-4 outside linebackers, NFL's kind of gearing towards just a little bit smaller guys, not worrying about too much, going for athleticism, just talent in general. But also we need to see a little bit more production out of them. But Georgia's got so many guys they're shuffling in and out that kind of takes away some production from them. We saw that with Trayvon Walker last year. Different type of pass rusher here with Nolan Smith. So expecting a breakout year for him this year. He's at 17. 18, maybe somewhat surprising, Cameron Brown, cornerback from Ohio State. I think they're just kind of banking on a breakout year from him. Like to see him step up a little bit. The Ohio State corners maybe living up to the past Ohio State corners going in the first round or in that range. So we'll see if there's a breakout season coming for Cam Brown, the corner from Ohio State. He comes in at 18. 19, Andre Carter II, the Army pass rusher. It's weird thinking Army pass rusher. It's just super weird thinking that 19th overall player, but he's kind of been on everyone's radar. He's been getting a lot of hype. 6'7", 250, real long, and super productive. 15 and a half sacks. I think he had 4 forced fumbles. All that's on the top of my head, but I believe that is accurate. So very, very productive. I know maybe he doesn't play the best competition, but very productive, and you like the length on him, at 6'7". So that's one to watch this year. Can he live up to what he did last year? Can he kind of repeat that? So it'd be weird to see an Army pass rusher draft in the first round, but so far it's kind of looking like that. So good to see him at 19. Number 20, it's going to be Ali Gaye, the LSU pass rusher. Want to see him be a little bit more productive. You can see he kind of has the traits you're looking for, 6'6", 250, long, athletic, strong. So it's just kind of the guys, the type of guys everyone's taking and looking for their potential, because the NFL teams, they believe they can get it out of them, because it's kind of turned to the more athletic guys there taking over. So, again, would like to see him a little more productive this year, but he's at 20. Number 21, DAWAND Jones, big boy, offensive lineman from Ohio State. He's kind of played all over the place. Both their tackles got drafted this year. He's going to play tackle. Could he be like that Orlando Brown Jr. type tackle? he has kind of the weight and the strength to play inside. He is very, very long. I like that length on the inside. So we believe he'll play tackle this year, and we'll see how he does. But he comes in at 21 there, another Buckeye. 22 is going to be Tyreque Stevenson, former Georgia Bulldog corner. I think that plays a big part. Guys coming from Georgia, but he played for Miami last year. He'll play there, obviously, this year. Good size, another good size corner, 214. Obviously, that's solid there. Had an impressive season last year. Maybe a better coaching staff in there for Miami. So let's see what they can get out of him there. So he comes at 22. So maybe not a big name guy, but he did come from Georgia. He had a pretty good season for Miami. I know again he could continue to improve still. But yeah, not a guy you don't hear his name pop up a whole lot. But yeah, the Miami corner at 22. 23, Georgia Bulldogs. Speaking of the Georgia Bulldogs, a running back that we haven't seen a whole lot of so far because the other talent, the running backs that have been there for Georgia, I mean, both their guys got drafted this past draft here in 2022, but Kenny McIntosh, the Georgia Bulldog running back, 6'1", 210, another good-sized back, comes in at 23, so they're just kind of banking on him living up to that hype, that Georgia Bulldog hype, and they like the traits on him as well. So, yeah, he's at 23. 24, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Kind of like CJ Stroud. I'm surprised at how this is the first receiver on the list as well. That's two shocking things. How low Smith-Njigba is on this list. I expect him to be way higher. And then the second part, he is receiver 1 according to this, but the first receiver is at rank 24. That's pretty damn surprising as well. But impressive season, especially kind of being kind of known as the third guy, or even fourth at some point on that receiver with that receiver group. It shows how good Ohio State's receiver group is. And then he plays Utah in that Rose Bowl and just goes absolutely bonkers. 6'1", 197. He kind of plays a little bit longer than that, but a guy you can put in the slot or put outside, just give him the ball in any way. Smart receiver, very good tracking. I think it's where he makes his money there. So he is at 24. So some surprises there with the receivers. And then 25th is next, but then we're going to talk about guys that are shockingly didn't make the list, in my opinion. 25, I mean, Zach Charbonnet, a former Michigan running back, UCLA running back, played there last year, kind of popped on everyone's radar. I'd say that LSU game last year, I mean, that was very early. Second game, I think that was their second game. And yeah, really popped on everyone's radar, went off there. And some thought he would go to the draft last year, but he's back at UCLA. Excited to watch him again. But yeah, very talented, and some thought he could be drafted somewhat early if he was in the last year's draft, but a little surprising at McIntosh. These last couple running backs are ahead of some other running backs there, one specifically. So these rankings were, I was very intrigued by them. There's some that were like, all right, that actually makes sense. We better start being higher on this guy and a guy to watch. And there's some guys where it's like, I better watch more of him. And there's some guys that it's like very shocking that they were on the list or higher than player X, or that player wasn't on the list. So very interesting, but a list of players that shockingly missed the cut. And there's more very good players that could be first rounds, maybe first rounds in my opinion after this. These are I just want to put players that were very shockingly not on it. And Bijan Robinson is that running back that I thought should have been ranked ahead of some of these last couple guys, and most people put him as a running back 1. We had 3 running backs on this list. He wasn't in there. I just find that very interesting. Even Tank Bigsby can throw on here as well. He probably should be ranked ahead of some of the other running backs, but it really isn't that shocking that maybe they didn't top 25 from a combine committee didn't put him on there. But Robinson's very surprising. Like we talked about, one receiver on this list, and I don't know how Kayshon Boutte was not on the list. Receiver from LSU, receiver U there, an absolute stud. We didn't see him play many games last year, so maybe that plays a part, but it's very shocking. Tyler Van Dyke, the quarterback from Miami, just feels like an NFL-type quarterback, like a Matt Stafford-type guy, strong arm, pocket passer. Those old school guys that are still all over the league. The coaches, that's the guy they like. I'm just very surprised that he wasn't on the list there at all. Peter Skoronski, the offensive tackle from Northwestern, really good tape. Very shocked not to see him either. Paris Johnson Jr., we saw other Ohio State offensive linemen, but Johnson Jr. did not make the list. I guess we got to see more of these guys in the tackle position. Miles Murphy, the edge rusher from Clemson. We saw a lot of edge rushers, and we mainly saw guys that they're kind of going for the traits. They have to have, be this athletic, this lengthy. Murphy is I mean, he has those traits. He's just, kind of more power, strength, but technique. But very surprised to see him on the list as well. Jordan Addison, who's now USC's receiver. He played for Pittsburgh last year, was Kenny Pickett's big-time target there. Very, very productive. Yeah, maybe he's a little undersized. Is he really, though? I mean, thin frame isn't really a problem. Justin Jefferson, I think Jefferson's a little more lengthy, but there's a lot of these receivers in the NFL. Eli Ricks, who I think did get in trouble off the field, so that could be why. But cornerback from Alabama, going from LSU to Alabama. Noah Sewell, linebacker from Oregon, was surprised not to see him on the list there. Very solid blitzer. Maybe you want him to be a little bit better in coverage or, I guess to make the list, but definitely was surprised not to see him. Josh Downs, so again, we're missing receivers on that list, and there's another one that could have been there in Jordan Battle, the safety from Alabama. And there's a lot of other guys we can talk about, quite a few other receivers. Another safety, Brandon Joseph, perhaps, from Northwestern and Notre Dame. But these guys, I'd say really Robinson through on the list, in order, Robinson through Murphy, maybe Addison. I mean, Ricks is really, really good. Maybe the off-the-field shit stuff is playing a part, but those guys at the top, based on my point, is very, very surprising they're on the list. So I don't know what that's about there, but I enjoyed this. I enjoyed looking at that and then making this video, because it kind of puts guys on our radar, bumps guys up maybe, and some I won't agree with all of that, everything that was on here, but very interesting. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I found this through Albert Breer, who covers the NFL, been covering for a long time. One of my favorite follows on Twitter there. I found it through him, these rankings. So that's where you can check it out. He has like a Sports Illustrated poster, article, whatever it is there, but very cool. But that wraps this up. We can talk more about it or anything on Twitter. Always talking with you guys, interacting with you guys there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on, because we have full NFL coverage here at the Goat House. That's going to do it, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.